Hello and welcome to my channel, or welcome back. So today's video will be a time lapse of the digital painting of Raphael from Love in Deep Space. For this one, it actually was from scratch on Clip Studio, but unfortunately I forgot that Clip Studio doesn't automatically start recording unless you specifically tell it to, unlike Procreate. So the initial sketches, I think the very first sketch I did not have a recording for it. But you can see the scribbles on screen of from where it started. But yeah, I am not actually an avid player of Love in Deep Space, by the way. I started getting bombarded with images of Silas on my Instagram, like constantly getting pushed, like since the game had come out, and I had no idea for the longest time even what this game was. And the more I found out about it, the less I was interested in it, to be honest, because I'm not really into dating games or anything like that, like dating sims and whatnot. And I thought it sounded kind of weird or something, especially because I didn't even understand what the gacha concept of it was. Like, to me, like, even Infinity Nikki kind of makes sense. You're pulling outfits, okay, whatever. And then after watching an Emarichu video about it, I was like, okay, I'm a little dead curious, and if I'm gonna draw these characters, like, I have this weird thing where I kind of like drawing characters of things I know at least a little bit of and played more of, just because I feel a little bit weird drawing characters I know absolutely nothing about, or games I know absolutely nothing about. So I gave it a shot, about like 15 minutes a day for 2 weeks or something. I wasn't really, like, I knew I kind of wasn't gonna like it because I'm not really the type of person that likes these kinds of games, but it was pretty interesting. Main story was actually kind of cool as far as I did get and stuff like that. And I do like the characters, the main ones obviously, but overall I probably wouldn't go back to it just because I kind of prefer more complex combat and stuff like that as being the focus, as opposed to just kind of like a dating sim kind of thing for me. I think also for the interactions and everything in the game I found really weird, and this is of course just personal opinion of it, but the main story part, the only thing that kind of bugged me was like, oh, the 3D character with the JPEG background fading in and out kind of thing. That weirded me out often. I can't recall if there was like actually 3D spaces at any point, but there was like there was a lot of just JPEG background kind of vibes, and just like, oh, this text and stuff like that. And I've seen that a lot for some old PC mystery games and stuff like that, like done, and so it kind of felt a little bit like outdated or lazy or stuff like that. Like, I know a lot of the effort probably goes into the pulls and animations and stuff like that, but I wish that they did a little bit more polish. Maybe, you know what, maybe in the further main story there's a lot more to it visually even, but like as somebody who started off at the beginning, whatever, I don't even know what level I ended off at, not very far in or something, because like I said, I didn't even unlock Silas. But yeah, definitely this is not a review or anything of the game. This is just my plain experience of it, just like trying it out because I was just dead curious kind of thing. That's about it for this talking about it, I think. Now back to the drawing. The time lapse I wanted to compress to be even faster, but when I did that, it kind of felt like it was going too fast, and I realized there was a lot more footage maybe than the Dante one, in fact. Not surprising, because this one was not hampered by my arm or anything like that, and it wasn't like just big, huge gaps of me not actually drawing at all. It was more like me constantly putting in the effort and struggling, because I thought it was going to be simple because he's half-naked fish, but that was not the case at all. So it also turns out, because I forgot, the computer crashed a couple of times also while working on this. I have several versions of it just because I kept saving versions like 1, 2, and 3, and 4 as I was like going on, just in case like one corrupted and I could move on to another one. I did this because for some weird reason, one, I could not for the life of me all of a sudden find the backups that are created, if the recovery files or something like that for a clip, which I have already done in the recent past, and I don't know why, but it's not saving, so I don't know what happened there. And the same thing happened with Photoshop recently, actually. The recoveries are just not working for one reason or another. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna have to create my own like recovery versions. And then another thing, because my computer crashed right when I was making the Trident, because I had set it to MP4 and OBS is like, it can't be recoverable or converted or whatever if I'm recording in MP4, that also totally got lost. So I don't have any recordings of myself drawing the Trident, which I did in Illustrator, because I find stuff like that, like polearms or any kind of weapons, are just a lot easier because you can then just do half and then flip and kind of have a much cleaner thing, and then I just do a paint over on that or use the line art. So the scales of the tail. I originally was just going to use a brush I found of scales. I figured it kind of would probably, the way it works, seems like it could wrap around. But the problem was just trying to adjust it around. I find there's like the warping kind of tools and Clip Studio are kind of meh. And so I was really trying to figure it out, and I wasn't going to individually draw every single scale because I've already done that at least twice for dragons that I've drawn, and it can be such a pain in the ass, and I just was not feeling it. So I decided to go 3D. So I think I've mentioned before, I do have some Blender experience, so I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna make the tail a very basic shape of it in Blender, and then apply texture I made with a pattern of the tail, and then I can just adjust and edit that back in Clip Studio. I think you see me messing around a little bit with the shading and stuff like that, and like maybe making it a little bit more metallic and stuff aside from just the lines, and a little bit of the color, playing around with the nodes, but I didn't want to go too deep into it. I figured it's a lot easier just to adjust in Clip Studio itself. Yeah, it felt good to be able to deal with the scales a lot quicker than I thought it was, because when I was fiddling around with the brush, if you saw earlier, I was just having such a hard time of it, and like I said, I did not like the way warping tool works in Clip Studio. But a trick, as you see here, is also, so it doesn't look so flat, is also painting a select amount of the individual scales. It kind of gives it way more depth and more of like, we're turning it to more of a painterly style and not too uniform. Since naturally, even when you look at fish, and even looking at the reference photos of Raphael himself, because they probably did a way better job creating that scale texture, is that scales are all individual, right? So they'll kind of be reflecting more individually in that process. I mean, in the light. Well, I guess because it's 3D, it would be 3D process. Okay, so I had re-recorded so much of this, so sorry if some of the stuff I've said in this video so far sounds completely silly or something like that, because I was massively stressed and caused myself so much anxiety these past 2 weeks over like being a dum-dum, and essentially just panic thinking I didn't get actually into the con I'm supposed to be tabling at. I am sorry if any of the video sounds a little loopy and crazy, because I had dragged my feet a little bit in finishing the last bits of my merch that I'm going to be selling at the con, just because I was getting a little stressed that I didn't hear from the con, and I was like, it would be really nice to get a confirmation like 4 weeks before or something like that I am 100% confirmed to be tabling, you know, because I've spent all this money and I need to spend more kind of thing to finish off my merch. And I even had sent an email, but they hadn't replied in a day, and then Dum Dum decided to check the site at midnight thinking, oh yeah, that partial list that somebody had posted that their name was on, maybe it wasn't sent in an email, maybe it was on the website, and it actually was, and I saw my name there, and it was like relief. I slept like a baby after days of agonizing, maybe even weeks, because honestly my like neck and arm started to hurt again, and I think it was just more like tension, not so much of like overuse or something like that, just because I've been very careful with posture and stuff like that and stretching. Oh my god. I just felt very silly because it was just a simple, like, you know, 2-second look around. To be fair, other cons, I don't know if I've seen them list Artist Alley exhibitors specifically that soon, so maybe that was like my experience, where this is a different convention and that's just how they go about things, which is fine. The communication was like fairly fine and everything like that, and I'm like praying they don't see that email, just because I felt like a dum-dum a little bit. It was like, it's my first time, so I'm very, very anxious. I'm super excited, but there's like some aspects I'm like so anxious about. And I feel like I cause myself that anxiety, which is like the most frustrating, but I like, it's one of those things where the best thing is to just stop and take a breath and think about it and think it through. Is there maybe a really easy way to fix the solution? Because sometimes there is. If you just use your brain a little bit more. Now, I was like trying to figure out how I was going to do the foam. I really liked the shapes I had kind of carved out for some of the parts, but there was like others, especially the one closest to him, where it was kind of looking a little weird. So I play around with that part so much and trying to adjust that foam splash. And yeah, a lot of the stuff I was like thinking, should I leave it flat? Should I detail it? And it was kind of going in circles with every part, like adjusting as I go along the way. I didn't have like one solid plan with it. Like I was actually pretty shocked that in terms of the color background overall, when I did that whole gradient, I was kind of shocked that I just went with it and I liked it. And that was the thing I kind of stuck with. I thought I was going to change up, and I wasn't even sure if I was going to do like a sunset one or what even was the idea, but I kind of really liked it and went with it. And so color-wise, I found I had no issues here, which was kind of funny. I will say I feel like the Dante one also I didn't have that much issues, which I'm feeling very great about. Like I'm feeling much more confident about like, okay, these are the colors, they work, that's fine. Like there will be like as I quote unquote call the post-processing, where it's just like messing with the curves and tones, so like upping the contrast, of course, in the end, because I find that definitely was like a little bit lacking on my own, and like that definitely needed some touch up and fixing for sure, and maybe even like balancing out all the colors together with like some kind of gradient map I figured maybe I would do. But overall, you know, I was like, this is pretty good. This is something I'm like a lot happier with, in terms of like before, where I would be working on something for ages and just not understanding what the colors I was even going to be going for or something like that. Like my brain didn't even like pick anything good out, but now I'm like automatically I'm like, yep, this is good, these are the colors, yep, and they work, it's fine. But that's years of experience, I guess, finally clicking. So that's that's sort of early for myself. And yeah, all I can say is just keep drawing, and eventually, after decades of experience, you'll get there. Maybe even sooner than me. You'll probably be faster than me or something like that. For color theory, I swear that for me was one of my like biggest issues of my life. So I find that was like one of my biggest hurdles, so I'm glad I'm kind of like getting over that now, centuries later. And yes, I wanted to completely ignore the initial drawing of the jewelry, because I don't even want to talk about that. I think until like the last hour of this painting, it actually was just horrible. That had such a long, ugly stage. Now for the trident, the initial thing that I did, I ended up coloring it here in Clip Studio, and I wasn't entirely a fan of it the entire time I was there. It really looked out of place. I know I wasn't 100% finished the entire drawing anyway, but still it just felt like a too sharp and too weird, like compared to everything else in it, and it was quite frustrating. Like I even used that chain brush and it looked too chunky and weird. So I decided to take a pause after I did the base colors and just went to actually adding more detail to the water as the foam parts, because I thought those probably would be better off looking a little bit more painterly rather than flat graphic compared to the rest of the image. I figured that would work out much better. And obviously this was just done with like the blend brush. I realized I totally didn't also realize that the blend brush had multiple different types of blending. So I had just the regular blend selected the entire time. And then I realized, oh, maybe I'll try the other one. And then I discovered the fingertip one was just perfect for this in particular, and doing exactly kind of what I needed for this entire process. So as I kept zooming in and out and looking at Raphael from afar, I realized I wasn't really a big fan of the dark red lines of the body paint, whatever it is. It kind of anyway clashes with his color palette, and I'm sure there's a reason lore-wise why it exists. I think he's like captured, or I don't know, based on some images I saw, and I think what somebody had like said, but I forget because obviously I'm never gonna get that memory. So I decided to take some artistic license and just kind of clean up and simplify those lines that are around his belly button, which are supposed to be way more intricate, but from afar it kind of just looks like he got like scratched by a cat at his belly basically, or something. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna like keep it cleaner and simpler. And so that way, if I happen to print a smaller print, it's not going to look as weird, because shape language matters, and the smaller sometimes you make something with a lot of details, it gets a little weird and a little bit muddy. So I had to keep that also in mind, because I'm not going to have like a very large 11 by 17 only 3/4 view of Raphael where I would keep that, but it's like the full body, right? So the detail would be much smaller. Yeah, I was looking at a lot of Raphael merman photos basically, as the worst part is they were all kind of like lower res, they weren't like massive, so all the tiny little details is why I struggled so much, like the jewelry and the accessories, and I guess even the body paint a little bit here and there, so yeah. But working with weapons, creating them vector form is also kind of a nicer and easier thing, because then you kind of have the straight lines and then there's no wonkiness to it. I just kind of prefer this process, because anytime I've drawn a weapon and traditional art as well, it's always been a frustration if I don't use a ruler, because it looks really like off. It looks terrible because I can't really draw a proper straight line or something. And if it's a curved weapon, oh boy. Traditional art wise, I hate drawing weapons. I'm not that great at it, so definitely a lot more practice needed. And now another part where I thought was going to be very simple. Rocks. The initial sketch I did, I was very happy with. I thought it looked cool. I even used references from the start, by the way. Rocks in water, getting splooshed at with water at a beach sort of thing, right? Literally what I am drawing now. But because I guess I was using too many references, and I believe what I had initially done, which was a big mistake, was I shrank down those details too small. So it was like he was sitting on a very large, he's very large, sitting on on a beach side essentially. Doesn't even look like that, to be honest. It just looks like a mess. So I had to step back again, look at it very closely, look at the references, and then I decided, okay, I'm gonna have to just block out a lot of these details and cut out a lot, sort of thing, as the rocks kind of are. They're more like larger cutouts. And as I was doing that, it was just improving as I went along, which was such a huge relief. Just because it was like kind of very stressful, you know, you're like, oh my god, I can't even draw rocks. So yeah, every part felt like quite a bit of effort for this, Which kind of makes sense, right? It's just how it is, especially because I realized, wow, this is also an artwork where I am including a way more detailed background too than even, well, no. Would it be more detailed than Dante? I think so, because I did reuse those stained glass ones that I already made in another artwork. So this was lots of stuff from scratch, and no assets of my own could be reused in any part of this at all. But I had a lot of fun because water is a challenge, but it's also a fun challenge. The scales were also like a fun challenge, and doing it 3D was actually fun because I really love using Blender and 3D aspects, so it was kind of like really fun to do it. I've never actually created an entire 3D character, so I don't think I would go for like that effort. But for little parts like this, and even organic parts, it would probably be super useful. I wasn't gonna build out the rocks in 3D. I thought that would be way too much effort, and I'd probably fiddle around way too much versus just even using that cutout tool or something and just, you know, messing around with it until the shapes made sense. So we are definitely nearing the end, and I'm just working on touching up different parts, erasing some of the line art because I realized, holy cow, I don't even really need the line art for the most part in most areas. And the biggest last minute big change was on Instagram. I ran into a Raphael figurine, and I was able to clearly see the details of the jewelry and accessories. So I touched up and changed some stuff based on what that figurine looks like. I don't know if it's perfectly one-to-one matching with the in-game model, but it was a lot clearer and it was a lot nicer, and I could just clean up and make it look a lot better. Because a lot of the reference images that I was looking at, all the promo and stuff like that, they were all not big enough to zoom in and actually see the perfect details of how the shape language of the jewelry worked. So that was definitely a huge bane of my existence, making me nearly want to erase all the accessories and just have them not have them in this image. And the artwork is complete. What are your thoughts? Did I do Raphael justice? This took so long. Yeah, who thought painting a merman would actually take this much effort and time? If you've gotten this far and enjoyed, I hope you can drop a like. If you would like to see more, then subscribe. Thanks for watching!